Hi guys, thanks for watching. This video is going to show you how you can generate random numbers using a table of random digits instead of a piece of technology random number generator. The reason they use this on the AP exam is because in order to grade you, really, you guys all need to come up with the same random numbers. And the only way that they can do that is by giving you this table of digits, making sure everybody starts reading it in the same place, and then therefore you guys will all get the same sample. So the first thing I want to note about this table is the line is telling you that this is line 101 of the random digits table. This is 102. So these numbers, 101, 102, 103, they're not part of the random digits. The random digits start right here. So we're going to start reading usually on line 101 or at the top, unless the question specifies for you to start reading on a different line. So for example, as you start to look at the random digits, the first random digit is 1, the second is 9. There's no spaces between them, there's no commas between them. They look like long numbers, but really these are just a list of random digits for you. The only reason for these spaces is so your eyes don't go crazy trying to figure out how many numbers you've counted. It's just like a phone number. They separate it for you to make it a little bit easier to read. Okay, so when we're working with a table of random digits in one digits, uh, first I want to note that I have a huge typo here. This should say that if your entire population, so go ahead and change that to population on your paper, because we can have a sample of any size, but if our whole population is only going to consist of 10 people or less, you could just go ahead and read the table as if all of the numbers are one digits. So go ahead and fill in one digits here. So for example, from the table above, the first 5 numbers would be 1, 9, 2, 2, and 3. If we were trying to find a sample of 5, 1, 9, 2, so that would be person who is labeled number 1, person who's labeled number 2, sorry, 9, and then the next would be labeled number 2, and then again, we have person labeled number 2. So repeated numbers are a big deal for us. We've repeated the number 2, which doesn't make sense logically when you're sampling. You can't reuse the same individual twice in a survey. They can't count twice in your sample. So in this case, we just need to skip over the repeated number as we go and move on to the next one. So when we go back up to the top here, we really would use person number 1, 9, 2, skip the second 2, 3, keep going to the right, 9 has already been used, so we have to move on to person number 5. That's how I got the list of 1, 9, 2, 3, and 5. So let me just show you an example of what this would look like. A teacher must choose 2 students from a group of 10 to participate in a certain activity. So she's going to label them all. And notice if we have 10, and we're trying to keep it in single digits, we're going to label them 0 through 9. That way we don't have to go into double digits with the number 10. And the random table of digits does contain zeros, so go ahead and label people number 0. So I have done this for you on your AP exam. You might just have to explain. I would first label every student with a single digit from 0 to 9, or you would actually just go ahead and label every person with a single digit from 0 to 9. So we're going to use line 104 to select just 2 students, the first 2 numbers that come up from line 104 that this teacher is going to pick for the activity. So go back up to line 104. I want you guys to pause the activity and see if you can decide which 2 students, or pause the video and decide which 2 students the teacher should pick for this activity. Okay, hopefully you guys came up with Lynn Lynn was labeled as number 5. The very first number in line 104 is 5, and the second number is 2. So that would be Lynn and Daniel. And that's it. You're just going to match up those corresponding numbers with the values that you see in the table. Now, it's really easy to use this table of random digits if your population is size 10 or under, but that's also extremely unrealistic. Usually your population has, I would say over 100 people, but we're going to look and see if there were 100 or fewer people in your population for the next part of the video. So the answers here should be Lynn and Daniel. Let's move on to same table, but let's just look at whether a more realistic situation. There's 15 students in the class. So using one digit, if we labeled 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, that's going to leave out the last 5 students. There's no more digits in single digits for them to be labeled as. So instead, hopefully you guys have kind of read here, so now we must read the table in increments of, you guessed it, 2 digits. So therefore, each individual is going to need to be labeled with 2 digits. Amanda, we could label her as 0, 0, but a lot of students, because there's only 15, we don't really need to get up all the way to 100. A lot of times people just do the first person as 0, 1, 0, 2, and so on. Your answer would differ a little bit how you label them, and that's okay. As long as you have all your work shown, no big deal. But because I think most of you think to go 0, 1, and we only have to go up to 15, this is totally fine. So I'm going to go ahead and label the rest of them. I want you guys to pause the video and label them as well. Okay, so I have all 15 of my students labeled. I'm going to go back to the top of the table. What 2 students would she select now? I'm going to go back to the top of the table, starting over at line 101. Remember, I only have students 0, 1 to 15 to pick from, so I'm just going to ignore numbers that are higher than 15. So this could take a while because there are a lot of 2-digit numbers higher than 15. So we can just cross them out, show your work on these table of digits. The exam readers love to see that. Starting up at the top, I have to read this in 2 digits. So the first number is 19. That's too high. 22 is too high. Now we have a big gap. 3 to 9. That's the number 39. Also too high. Then we have 50. You can kind of see how this is going to take forever. 34 is too high. Whew. Okay, we finally got to 05, which is Jacob. So we're going to include Jacob. He's 05. Make a little note of that. And I go back up, find my second student. 75 is too high. This next number is really 62. 87 is too high. And we get to 13. So we don't have any repeats. So far it's just 5 and then 13. So that would be Matt. Matt is 13. Okay, challenge question. I want you to pause and think about it. I kind of alluded to this before, but if there's exactly 100 individuals, which that's a 3-digit number, do I have to label these all of the individuals as 3-digit values, or can I somehow use 2 digits? So I feel like I'm kind of giving it away here, but see if you can think about how you can use 2 digits to label individuals, label 100 individuals. Okay, the answer, obviously, is that you can use 2 digits. The reason is because, let me see if I can just type here. The first person must be labeled as 00. Because if you include 00, then the 100th person can be labeled has 99. So if we go from 0, 1, then we would have to go into 3 digits. But if we start at 0, 0, that's kind of that 100th value. So if the first person is 0, 0, the 100th person can be 99. The reason that you might want to do that is because reading the table in 3 digits is a nightmare. And also, if you only have 100 people, but everybody is labeled in 3 digits, then you're dealing with a ton of numbers that are too high. Let me see if I can give you an example. So when we read it in 3 digits, the first number would be 192. So I guess that one would work. Oh no, sorry, that would not, because 192 is way above that 100th person. 239 is too high, 503, 405, 756. You kind of see what I'm saying? All of these numbers are too high and they would have to be skipped. So it wouldn't be until you get somewhere like down here. Maybe this is the 9th person. Finally, we find someone. So it's just a little bit of a headache to use 3 digits. But the reality is, if you have 115 students, you have to use 3 digits. There's just no other way around it. So you would have to label them 001 all the way through 115. If you have 4 digits, oh my goodness, 0001 all the way through, I don't know, however many, maybe we have something like this, 1,150 people. So I don't think you're going to really have to deal with any more than 3-digit values and reading this table, but just in case, we'll talk about it right here. So I want you guys to, obviously now that you've watched the video, you should have filled in these notes. I want you to try this last page on your own. It's helping review a little bit about simple random sampling, which is a huge part of this chapter and your next test. But down here, I have a table of random digits for you guys to practice what you've just learned. Please message me if you have any questions.